Let's check out my Twitter page for the day. Oh, what the f- What's up guys, this is Zero Kitsune, and today we are talking about aspects fighting games need to group around. And what caused me to want to talk about this is I've actually been dwelling on this ZTI for a couple days, and the subject has been changing left and right, from the Evo controversy kinda sorta to Capcom's just flat off decisions and all that such. Speaking of which, if you don't know, an interesting thing happened during Evo is that in the grand finals, ESPN, which was showcasing the Street Fighter event on television, told a player to change his costume. To some, it wasn't a big event, but to people who, don't like censorship, it was like, oh my god, fuck those guys. But, really? Noise? I don't care. But, I'm not gonna dwell on that too much. Censorship bad. Stop doing it, Capcom. But, the reason why they make these decisions is because they need more money, and they're trying to attract bigger companies. That's why things like the Armika butt slap, the Cammy camera angle, all that stuff, that's why it happened. It wasn't to bow down to like super rad fins or, because they got ashamed of themselves all of a sudden. It was to draw in bigger companies for more money. But really, the reason why they're having a hard time getting the money they need is simply because they need to attract more customers, and they're failing to do that. Compared to other big competitive scenes like League of Legends, Counter-Strike Go, Dota 2, all that such, that's what I'm comparing them to, because their players, some of their top players make, up in the tens of thousands of tons of money just for playing, not necessarily for winning. And that's what the FGC really wants. They want to be able to pay these players because that's how you get more people to play. But we're moving on. That's the ZTI for another time. Let's just talk about things that fighting games need to group around to get more people to play, because different fighting games have done great things in the expansion of the genre, but it seems like they each do like a little piece and none of them bring it all together. Example, Smash Brothers. Yeah, that's what I'm starting with. Their gameplay variety is some of the best in the entire genre. They have multiple game modes, all sort of events, trophy collecting, all that great stuff. And the thing is, it's built around one engine. The core mechanic for Smash Brothers facilitates an entire story mode, traveling all around, a adventure platform mode. And I think more fighting games need to do that, because, an example, Mugen, and I might end up going back to the example a lot, showed that the simple engine that is a fighting game can be expanded to do so much more than simply two people fighting each other, or assist and all that such. So, gameplay variety from Smash is one of the things that all fighting games need to start doing. But going from there is story mode, and the reason why I'm jumping to story mode is because a sad thing is Smash 4 dumped an amazing story mode, partially because they just thought it wasn't worth it, and YouTube would spoil the cutscenes. Nintendo has some weird decisions. But so they dropped story mode for their fourth installment when story became kind of a hot topic in more recent years when it came to fighting games. Example of someone that did story mode well is Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat did a pretty good story mode, but again, gameplay variety holds it back, because in the story mode it always ended up being two people fighting against each other with no variation to the game. A better example for a good story mode is slightly Injustice, because they had those QTE events. Granted, QTEs are meh, but they at least altered the dynamic of the fight in the story a little bit. Simple health changes, but you could expand on that to do so much more. Another bonus little thing is BlazBlue story mode. BlazBlue, personally, has one of the best story modes in the business. It goes very in depth. They've expanded on in so many ways to the point that there are light novels, animes, mangas. They care about that story. And, you know, caring about your story goes a very long way. But jumping from that story is the business model. Because Eastern fighting games, at least to me, have a terrible business model. You pay for a single installment, and then you have to pay for the 4 or 5 upgrades at almost full price down the line. I think that is horrible, and even worse is PC games, which end up getting their installments 1 or 2 titles behind consoles. And to be fair, consoles are at least 1 installment behind the arcades in Japan. So that business model is just ugh. But a good business model, Killer Instinct. Free-to-play fighting game where you pay for the individual characters and occasionally have a character that is limited edition. Granted, limited edition seems to be a non-existent thing nowadays when it comes to gaming. I have Shago. I didn't buy Shago first time. I should not have Shago. But moving on. The business model of KI, I feel, really works because it moves in with the MOBA free-to-play style. There could be some tweaks to it to make it a little bit more profitable, but generally speaking, Iron Galaxy really hit it out the park with that business model. And Street Fighter V tried to do something similar, but the problem is Street Fighter V still is tied to the console requirement of paying $60 up front for the game. And to speak nothing of the Season Pass, which didn't include the EVO DLC. Granted, there was a good reason for that, because the EVO DLC was going to partially add to the money in the Capcom Pro Tour, Capcom Cup. Doesn't excuse why it's $20. They could have easily done a pay-as-you-want model, but maybe that was a restriction based on Sony and the fact that they're on PlayStation 4, which doesn't have the liberties of PC, but ugh. Speaking of liberties of PC, let's talk about the cost aspect of a fighting game. And this is a funny thing, because back in my day, back in the old days, you played a fighting game at an arcade. And that cost you quarters at a time. Sure, you wasted your quarters if you lost because you're back in the back of the line. You had to wait for a bunch of other people to lose before you get your chance to try to take the reins again. But still, it's quarters at a time. Compare that to PC gaming at the time, which was an expensive endeavor. You had to pay a lot of money to get a machine capable of playing Counter-Strike. And so competitive Counter-Strike really was the rich man's game, while arcades were just everyone. That aspect is flipped. And that's kind of bad for fighting games, because nowadays everyone's PC can play League of Legends, Counter-Strike Go, and Dota serviceably. Maybe not an extreme competitive level, yes, you're gonna have to downscale your graphics, but I can play Counter-Strike on my grandmother's laptop. I can. Fighting games, though, at the moment, because it feels like they're trying to push towards a everyone can do a thing, but at the moment you still had to pay $400, $500 for a console, and then pay the $60 on top for the fighting game, and potentially pay even more money for the DLC or the expansions in the case of Eastern fighting games. So that means the cost aspect has built up compared to things like Counter-Strike, which are now everyone's game. So that's another downside. But that one's probably going to be the hardest thing for fighting games to overcome, because when it comes to the expenses of gaming, people don't want to admit to it, but games have cost less and less over the years. If you count inflation, the expense over gaming has decreased. I think one study I saw was, if you factor in for inflation, a game back in like the 90s or 80s would be $80 now. So games weren't cheap back in the day, and they're cheap now. The problem is the economy is so garbage. Let's just say garbage. That $60 for a video game is hard for everyone. So that's a problem. But that is nothing the FGC can do about it. Maybe big fighting game companies could probably lobby, and we're gonna move on to another thing that Eastern fighting games do well, and it kind of done meh in KI, so I guess that's the linker. Training mode, because fighting games are goddamn hard, and they require a serious dedication that turns off players. They see this wall of knowledge they need to ascend past, and they just can't do it. But I'm not saying make fighting games simpler. I'm implying it, but I'm not saying it. What I am saying is that Guilty Gear's training mode could go a long way, and all fighting games need to implement something similar. That is how you teach a player how to play. You show them the matchups, you show them what players need to do to fight a particular player, you show them the inputs, you make it fun. And Guilty Gear did that. But Guilty Gear wasn't the first person to try to redo the training mode. Honorable mention goes to Skullgirls, which also has a fairly in-depth training mode. So, and personally, Skullgirls is my favorite fighting game in recent years. So, much love to them. But this ZTI has gone on way longer than expected. I think I'm gonna start shooting for 10-minute caps instead of 5-minute caps to give me more time to explain my points. But with that said, show some love to the smaller games, because there's more than just Street Fighter, and we really need to push that. The fact that Street Fighter has basically eaten up a huge portion of the FGC, I don't think is a good thing, because Capcom doesn't seem to be making good decisions when it comes to their business lately. So show some love to the Yatagarasas that completely get thrown to the wayside. And in the comments, leave to me your opinions on what fighting games need to do to improve themselves just as being a game. Not just a fighting game, but a video game. And also throw in some fighting games that I didn't mention that had really good features and such. Maybe I'll read the comment and buy one and be like, oh man, this is fucking awesome. But either way, I'll see y'all guys next time. And now I'm gonna go see what they did to Jury's new theme. Fuck you, Capcom!
Come on!